Percy has the perfect timing. She actually has this football, the little squeaker football in her mouth. And I'm like, if she squeaks this thing, and then like literally as it started recording, and she's,
That is,
you can't find, I might keep that in. You can't find a less squeaky toy.
bro. You have to keep that in.
Yeah, I'm probably going to keep it in. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Album Fight Club. I'm here with myself, Mike Kane, of course. I'm here with Cody, and as you can tell, I'm here with my dog, Percy, who loves to interrupt the recording right as it starts. But Cody, how are you doing?
Mike, I'm doing what you have to say my full name. It is Cody Valagrius Constantine.
So we're really running with this.
I'm sticking with it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Hopefully I remember, although 2 weeks from now or 3 weeks from now, when we do the next episode, I'll probably forget as usual. But hey,
season 2, we have bits now.
Okay. That's another thing too. We're still on this whole season 2 thing, which I don't recall how many episodes we've done in relation to season 1. I think season 1 had like 12 or something. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Anyway, we're back with another one. We're back with Album Fight Club this time. And believe it or not, we're actually here with the first female group, which is surprising, Cody, because we've done over like tons of episodes at this point. And Percy is just making this tough. He is.
Percy absolutely loves the artist we are about to talk about. Mike.
Apparently. Okay, she dropped it, so hopefully
Percy.
Maybe she'll grab a different one. Okay, so first female artist, like I said, kind of crazy to think about given the amount of episodes we've done, but as it stands, every single artist we've done and every single group we've done, all dudes. Even if a band had like 5 members, they were all dudes in it. So this is the first time we're covering an artist or group that has at least one female in it, if not more. And in the case of this one, there's actually 2, because this is the band Heart, which is most well known for the fact that its 2 main members were the sisters Ann and Nancy Wilson. Now, why Heart? Why Heart for the first female group? There's a number of reasons why. For one, I think Heart's a pretty great band, as we're going to discuss here. I think even beyond the sort of stereotypical viewpoint of women in rock, especially at the time, this is the 70s at this point. You think of the famous rock bands of that era and the era before, and women weren't naturally coming up in the conversation. The Beatles, Zeppelin, Rolling Stones, it's just dudes, right? People could say rock is a dude's game. Well, then certain female artists come into the picture and it's like, not exactly. And I think Heart was a really good example of that whole not exactly, where you have these 2 sisters come in, one a killer vocalist, the other a killer guitar player. And sure, the other guys in the group are guys, right? But that's, it's these 2 women who are making a statement being like, look, we can rock just as hard as these dudes can. And they prove it on specifically these 2 records we're going to talk about. That's partially why. The other partially why reason is that my fiance's parents actually just saw Heart live in concert. Heart is still doing shows, which is great and fantastic. I don't know how good they are anymore, right? I haven't heard live recordings from the last couple years. But hey, they're still doing music, so that's cool. Now, as far as the albums we chose, at least in my opinion, when it comes to Heart, it really comes down to 2. This is another example of like, they really have like 2 really, really good albums, and then everything else is anywhere from like good to just okay. And those 2 albums are their first one, Dreamboat Annie, and their third one, unless I'm mistaken, I believe it's their third one, Little Queen. Now, as we go through, you'll hear some of these names of these songs and be like, oh yeah, that's on that record. Sure, that makes sense why it's that record, or why that record is somewhere up in their upper echelon. As far as I like to do this with bands, we cover lists of various publishers and groups and Reddit posts who frequently say, okay, what's the best album by X, right? In this case, what are the best, if you rank the discography of Heart, what would you do? Literally 9 out of every 10 lists I saw, Dreamboat Annie and Little Queen were up towards the top, if not number 1 and number 2. So that's why we chose it. Now, Cody, do you have any familiarity, history, whatever with Heart?
Yeah, I like Heart. I like guitar music, so if you listen to enough guitar music, you've heard Heart. You've heard the big hits that are all over these 2 records. In my opinion, this might not be shocking, one of these records is infinitely better than the other.
Okay.
The other one, I'm almost going to go so far to say that it doesn't even really feel like a Heart record. I don't know. Big respect to Heart. It takes a lot to It takes a lot to get over that hump of gender equality and for them to have not been just like a gimmick, um, for them to actually be legitimate songwriters and make a real splash. Speaking of female artists, I actually just went and saw Joan Jett and Alanis Morissette, and this is almost like a really interesting case of because don't get me wrong, I respect Joan Jett. Besides like the four big Joan Jett hits, it's by the numbers guitar music. Like it's by the numbers what Disney would call punk music, right? Where it's like we all got leather jackets and we're all wearing black t-shirts. And we all say, "Hey man, don't do that, man." Whereas Alanis Morissette is almost like the complete opposite. Incredible songwriting, incredible live show, talentful, almost impossible to surpass in terms of like her band's really good, her messages are really good. She is an activist still, so that's really cool. And that's kind of how I feel about both of these records. One of these records is Alanis Morissette, and the other is Joan Jett.
It's interesting you say that. I'm not sure I agree. At one point, Cody and I were discussing a track by track for these two albums. We decided it doesn't quite make sense, which we'll get into when we especially discuss this first record. But as I was going through it track by track, or at least attempting to, I was like, I think these records kind of go toe to toe with each other personally. And I might give the edge to the one if I had to guess you're not going to give it to, but I've been surprised by you before, so maybe I'll be surprised by you again.
Well, so here is, I guess here is the mountain Mike is going to have to climb today. I love Dreamboat Annie. I think Dreamboat Annie is a really great record. Little Queen should just be called Led Zeppelin. And that's the mountain Mike's going to have to climb to get me to agree, because a lot of listening to this was, man, dude, don't get me wrong. I love these riffs. This just is Led Zeppelin.
So are you saying that Dreamboat, I know we usually get to this at the very end and it's weird to open this up in the first 5 minutes. Are you saying Dreamboat is better than Little Queen in your opinion?
In my opinion.
We agree. I didn't think.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because I'm exactly with you. In fact, if we want to talk about Little Queen first, we can, even though it came out later. So typically we save the later record to the end, or rather second in conversation. I'm literally, so much of my notes is, why does this sound like Led Zeppelin? Like,
thank you.
It's literally Led Zeppelin, just with a female singer. And okay. I'm not to take it into that territory, but kind of that is what it is.
Before we say anything further, I do want to say this. Other bands have tried purposefully to become Led Zeppelin, to accidentally stumble onto the magic of arguably the greatest contemporary rock and roll band of all time. Pure rock and roll. That is amazing. And the problem about the Zeppelin formula is the issue that Little Queen walks into, right? Where, Mike, what would you call the Zeppelin formula? It's here is the tastiest guitar riff, the most insane guitar lick you've ever heard in your life. The drums are going to do that thing where it's going to be stuck in your head for a week. The bass carries the whole thing. And then the singer, right? They're singing about some kind of fantasy, mystical thing, or they're singing about like a lost romance that has been misunderstood and melancholic and things like that. Great. Awesome. Holy shit. Did Led Zeppelin put the flag in the ground, though? That's the problem, is when you take a Gibson guitar and you turn the volume all the way up and then you play a blues lick, it's not Buddy Guy anymore. It's not BB King. It's a Zeppelin song.
Yeah. Why don't we talk about Little Queen first?
Yeah.
Since we're in the agreement that, at least from what our understanding is, that Dreamboat Annie is superior. I believe that. Cody, I think, believes that. So let's just save the quote-unquote superior record for the end, in our opinion. That's not to say this record isn't great. Little Queen has a lot going for it. And like you said, it's kind of hard to pull off Led Zeppelin as well as they're pulling off Led Zeppelin. The problem is, of course, it's not Led Zeppelin, it's Heart, and they should be doing their own thing, right? And in some moments they are, right? I think, for example, the first track, Barracuda, probably the biggest Heart song ever. It sounds like Led Zeppelin-ish, but I feel like it has a little bit more going for it than just saying, oh, this is just a Led Zeppelin knockoff.
Yeah, Barracuda sounds like if you listened to like Immigrant Song and then you said, I like that idea.
Hmm.
I want to make something that sounds like it's inspired by Immigrant Song. But what I think Barracuda does really, really well is it trails off from the Zeppelin ether. Because you get that section, which I don't like. I don't know if you have this memory. Did you ever play the Hot Wheels PC game?
No.
Okay. So my right hand to God, Barracuda is in the Hot Wheels PC game because I have a very vivid memory of driving a Hot Wheel through like a backyard to the sound of that guitar in the bridge right before it gets to the solo where it's like ba da da da. That section, I remember driving a Hot Wheel and like there was like a CGI spider that came across the screen. But like this is a great song. Led Zeppelin, for all their faults, wrote fantastic songs, and if that rubbed off on this, that's incredible because this song has every hallmark of a killer fucking rock and roll song you'd want, right? Awesome guitar riff, right?
One of the most iconic gallop riffs I think ever in rock music.
Ever. It's easily in the top 5.
Yeah.
And then you got the drums coming in, get your big verse, you got someone singing, great vocal performance. And then it trails off into its own space, which I think really works because I think the qualifier that takes it away from being Led Zeppelin worship is I feel like they knew exactly when to be heart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it helps that the lead singer is female and the lead singer of Zeppelin was male. Like there's that distinction right there. But I'll tell you one thing is that, and you'll hear me say this time and time again, Ann Wilson, who is the lead singer of the group, I think she is the secret weapon of heart.
Dude,
time and time again, on these records, plural, my favorite parts of it are Ann Wilson's vocals, and that comes here in Barracuda as well. That chorus where she does the "and I won't show Barracuda," like the way she does it and the way she leads into it, it's like it's sultry, it's sexy, it's powerful, it's like teeth gnashing, it's all those things wrapped up into one, and it's that kind of like vocal thing where like a male vocalist in rock music can do gnarly, they can do whatever, right? But when you throw a female into rock music, it's like takes it to this other like plane of existence where it's like this. Again, I don't want to be sexist or anything, and I'm not trying to come across that way, but for many, many years, you look at the iconic rock bands of the times, and they're all men, right? Whether that's a fortunate thing or an unfortunate thing, it is what it is. That's what history has become. And so when you get a female person or a female group or a female artist, whatever, that makes a statement in rock music, and then on top of it is also just like really kick ass as well, there's something about it, man, that I think really takes it to another level. As far as the Zeppelin stuff goes, what's funny is that the record that this most reminds me of is Led Zeppelin 4, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Especially when we get to a track down the line here. But we're not quite there yet. But this is so Led Zeppelin 4 specifically. Not 2, not 1, not Houses of the Holy. It's 4, right?
Yeah.
What's funny is, if I'm not mistaken, Led Zeppelin 4 came out in like 71 or sometime in the early 70s. And this record came out in 77. Again, if I'm not mistaken, and I did my research correctly. So that's a pretty wide gap. It's not like Heart heard Led Zeppelin 4 when it came out, and then a year later they made Little Queen. It's like they had years upon years to listen to this record and then go, whether this was the case or not, you can't ignore it, that this is literally like the influence of Led Zeppelin 4 is on its sleeve. It's wild. So I can only imagine how much that played into it because it is so abundantly clear. In the case of Barracuda, though, I think it's working very well. There's some other songs on this record that I don't think it's working very well. But for Barracuda in particular, there's a reason it's their biggest song. There's a reason it opened the record. There's a reason it's like the song you know from this band. It's fantastic.
Yeah, special shout out to her vocal performance going into that chorus.
Yeah.
Because I mean, she does that walk up, and it sounds like she is screaming at the end of it. And when she gets down to ooh,
Mm-hmm.
Barracuda. It feels like she's standing in the back of the room belting that out. And it's so impressive because when you listen to it, you probably heard these songs like retail stores, like at Walmart and things like that, just on the radio. You listen to it with good headphones, and it's like, holy Christ, there's some velocity behind what she's saying. There's like pure emphasis on these words, and it's awesome. It's great,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I know Heart because of songs like Barracuda and songs like Magic Man and, the radio hits, the songs that made it to Guitar Hero, etc. Right? The rest of this record really is not, like, not being a huge Heart fan. This is not songs, or at least as far as I know, these are not songs you hear on your average classic rock radio, right? And so it's strange to get the rest of this record, because when I hit track 2, Love Alive, I don't think I've ever heard this song before. If I have heard it before, I don't remember hearing it before. So a lot of this was first listening experience for me, which is very rare on this podcast. Typically, either one of us is very well known or both of us are. And it continues the trend of, okay, if I know Barracuda very well, what's the rest of this record got to offer? It's got to offer some good stuff. And Love Alive, I think, is good, right? It's a very vibey song. Coming off Barracuda, it's got great vibes to it, great instrumentation throughout. In fact, throughout this whole record, it's got great instrumentation. But like we've reiterated, you can't ignore the Zeppelin influence on this thing. I mean, when the second half kicks in and the drums kick in, that's literally John Bonham playing those drums. It sounds like When the Levee Breaks. It sounds like Black Dog. Like it's that drum set sound that Bonham did. And again, I don't know if that was the choice, but you just can't ignore it. You can't look, at least I can't. I can't look over it. Now, it helps that a lot of this stuff is good, and Love Alive is good. It's not great. I don't think it's like one of their greatest songs. I don't think it's the greatest thing I've ever heard, but it's vibey. It's got vibey goodness to it with that Bonham influence, with that Zeppelin influence. It's good. It's not great.
I agree. And the important thing to recognize is that music at this point was still rarefied air, right? Like, not everybody's able to just put out music. So you get to being this level of big where you're like a radio popular band. You're playing probably like civic arenas and things like that. Someone eventually is going to go, hey, have you listened to Led Zeppelin? And if a record came out 7 years before, or 8 years before, 6 years before, whatever, you go back to listen to Led Zeppelin 4, you're probably like, oh, dude, yeah, this is a great sound. I just want it to sound like this. That's probably what happened. They probably just listened to Led Zeppelin 4 and said, I want it to sound like this. So mix it like this.
One can hope that's what happened, right?
Yeah.
I don't want it to be the kind of thing where they're like, oh, let's just rip off Led Zeppelin because they're success. I don't think this is what happened, right?
No.
I think Heart was well known and well thought out enough to be like, look, we like the sound of this thing. We respect this band. They're one of the biggest rock bands ever. So like eventually we're just going to be talked about in the same vein. Let's just make a record that kind of has that influence, has that respect towards this band.
Yeah. And I think exactly what you said. It's a good song, super vibey. Moves right along at a decent pace, but it just feels like Zeppelin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that okay, good.
Well, you get to Sylvan Song / Dream of the Archer, which I do think these two flow together because to me, Sylvan Song is just the intro to Dream of the Archer.
Yep. If we were going to do it song by song, this was how I had it. I had it part of Dream of the Archer, and then I had the opposite for Dream of Annie.
Yep. Bro. It's as if the Battle for Evermore was their favorite song ever. And they're like, let's just do that. Now, to be fair, it's not literally Battle for Evermore. But my God, dude, does it like just come from the straight playbook of Battle for Evermore from Led Zeppelin 4. It's so fantasy influenced. It's so that sound. It's so that vibe. And it's good, right? I like this song, especially Dream of the Archer. I think it's pretty great. It's that sort of like Tolkien woodland elf city, like Lothlorien or Rivendell, if you're familiar with Lord of the Rings. I'm just throwing out examples. It captures that vibe really well. But, Led Zeppelin did the same thing on Battle for Evermore 5-ish, 6-ish years earlier. And it's so concisely like similar
Yeah.
that most of the times when I listen to this song, I'm like, I can't get over how Battle for Evermore this is, right? I don't know. Like, maybe some people don't see it that way. Maybe they're huge Heart fans and not Led Zeppelin fans. And they're like, I don't see this connection. As someone who's a huge Led Zeppelin fan and was a Led Zeppelin fan before I was really diving into Heart, I can't ignore this connection.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. If you closed your eyes and listened to the first 20 seconds of this song, you're going to be hard pressed to not immediately think of Led Zeppelin. It's like you're being psyoped. You close your eyes and you hear whatever that is, like the mandolin and the didgeridoo and all that stuff or whatever, the sitar, and it just pops up. The Led Zeppelin logo pops up, and it's like, how did this happen?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's once again super cool. I love that there's a sense of tension moving into the song that then leads into Dream of the Archer. I like that there's a chance that maybe if this song came just on like a shuffle, this would be a standalone song, right? It doesn't, obviously it hard leads into Dream of the Archer, but it works on its own. I like the fantasy elements, but again, and don't get me wrong, I mean, I is my own life have just, it's like taking your older brother's final report from a teacher he had like 3 years before you,
Yeah.
and then looking at it and then going, okay, I can just do this, reading it and then typing your own words.
Mm-hmm.
You still did the work, right? You still had to readjust some things and probably shifted the structure. It doesn't mean your older brother just gets moved into the past. That being said, this song and the connector to it, Dream of the Archer, are incredible. These are very, very fantastic showcases of fantasy music. It feels like if you went to a Renaissance fair.
Well, that's the thing, too, is this album cover, I don't know the story behind the album cover, but it's very Renaissance fair. There's like this gypsy wagon behind them. Anne and Nancy are like in the foreground, and they've got very like gypsy attire on. Looks like a Renaissance fair. There's literally like a goat behind Nancy just like hanging out. So I assume that's the vibe they're going for. And if that is the vibe they're going for, fantastic. With Dream of the Archer, yeah, nailed it. Dream of the Archer, Sylvan Song, you totally nail it. But yeah, man, like it cannot be ignored. I'm sorry. I will say though, Anne's vocals on this song are, I think, magnificent. Yeah. Really, really nailing the vocal. It feels that way. It feels influenced in the way that it should. Like, it's all fantastic.
Yeah. And I think we should say again, the instrumentation on this record is incredible. To get this many different sounds out of a band that probably a lot of people thought of was just like, it's two teenagers, right, wooing themselves over grown men and having songs about heartbreak. To be able to pull this level of like adult instrumentation and interject all of this unique sound is really impressive. Because when I think of Heart, this isn't what I think of. This like, I don't close my eyes and think about like the battle for like, what's the field in Lord of the Rings where they have that giant battle?
Pelennor.
Yeah, I don't think of the Battle of Pelennor Fields when I close my eyes and listen to Heart. But it's like, yeah, now I'm going to remember that like they did all this cool, like vague folk stuff. And maybe maybe Mike and I have completely missed the mark on this, and this is a concept record. There's a huge chance we just overshot the ballot here.
Totally. I can see it, honestly. If this is a concept record, I would not be surprised.
Yeah, if this flows as a secret concept record, then that's awesome. Because a lot of the music on this has this like weird, you're going to walk into a tavern and meet someone who's going to send you 40 miles away walking distance. Mm-hmm. That's what all of this feels like. It's got
sort of a Dungeons and Dragons vibe to it as well.
Yeah.
But what's funny is you get that vibe of Song of the Archer or Dream of the Archer, where it's that woodland sylvan caryatid vibe, right? Kick It Out, which comes right after, is total 180. It's like, dive bar music. Yeah. Now, dive bar, like 70s dive bar, not like modern dive bar. But it's like this, it's this rocker. It's this rockin' song, which after Dream of the Archer, it's like, man, what's the 180 we took here? It's a really fun rock song. but I'm sorry. Like, you hear this song. I heard this song for the first time, I think, right? Again, most of these songs I think I haven't heard before. Maybe I have somewhere and just forgot about it. Barracuda, I've heard a million times. All these other ones, I don't think so. So I hear Kick It Out for the first time. I'm like, man, this is a cool little kick-ass song. Man, does it sound like Rock and Roll off of Led Zeppelin 4, right? It sounds like that song, right? And I hate to do that. I hate to like keep quantifying this record in that way, but I just can't ignore it. And I'm glad, Cody, you saw it the same way, because that means I'm not alone here. Right? Somebody else saw it in a similar fashion.
Now, I will say this. Kick It Out is fantastic. And this is a hot take that I've had about Led Zeppelin for a long time. I would rather have this than a band like Greta Van Fleet.
Oh, absolutely.
I would rather you stumble into it, right? Because there's something really fantastic about accidentally sounding like Led Zeppelin. It's like accidentally writing Yesterday, you know? It's like, or Blackbird. It's like, oh, cool, I'm just playing these guitar chords. What is this? If your main goal is to resurrect John Bonham and resurrect a band who really kind of did a disservice for a long time, that's fucked up. You stumble onto it, that's awesome. Good for you. Yeah, hell yeah. Do that. That's kick ass. Rock and roll keeps going. And what I like about this song is, it's like Mike said, it's this 180, almost like if you just flipped a chalkboard and you just get this like gnarly guitar riff. It's awesome. Once again, it feels like Led Zeppelin, which is also a testament to Led Zeppelin, because there's a song that happens later that feels like a couple of other bands that I love, because it's finally a break out of the Zeppelin zeitgeist.
Actually, I was going to say it starts with the next song. The next song being Little Queen actually doesn't sound Zeppelin to me. It sounds different, which, okay, great, right? It moves on to something else. Whether, again, that was the intention or not, I don't know. But suddenly the groove that's here, it's a fantastic groove, but to me, it's not a Zeppelin groove. Yeah. It's something else. And in particular, the bridge that comes in this song almost sounds like Pink Floyd. It kind of sounds, it's got this like synth wave thing going on, which for the time, not that bands weren't using synth. I mean, Pink Floyd was already in that camp, but it sounds like something totally different that we haven't gotten on this record yet. And that totally different thing doesn't sound like Zeppelin to me. So in the case of something like Little Queen, I liked that it was doing that, but the song wasn't very exciting to me. So this is the dilemma I ran into. Once they get out of this Zeppelin sort of camp, I'm like, awesome, right? We're moving on. And then all of a sudden, the songs are just like baseline good, right? They're doing good things. They're baseline interesting to me, which is to say, it's good music, but it's not like wowing me music.
See, I think in terms of pure like rock and roll, this is one of the nastiest guitar riffs I've ever heard in my life.
It's a good one.
Just the way that it comes in, there's so much stank on the guitar, where it's like the intensity that it's happening, the tempo, but the way that you can tell that you said it's Nancy?
Yeah, Nancy's the guitar player.
The way that Nancy is playing this guitar, it feels like she is smoking a cigarette after sex. This is how you would play a guitar after you just did that. Just like, I'm throttling this fucking thing, dude. And then the rest of the band comes in and it's like, okay, no. See, I feel the complete opposite about this instance, Mike. When this kicks in, this is me feeling like, okay, you finally found the groove. Now you're running with it. Where it's like, hey, if you can sing, and it can be, if you want it to be this pretty woman singing all of these sultry, sexy words, then I'm going to make the guitar sound fucking riled up. That's what this feels like to me. Like, all right, you want it, now you have it. And here's the problem, is it kicks ass. Now, what do you want with the rest of it?
Right. And we've already talked a lot about Anne. We haven't really talked so much about Nancy. I mean, you just did. Much of my Nancy praise was going to come with Dreamboat Annie, which we might have talked about first, but we're saving it for. I'll say now, Nancy's obviously amazing on the guitar.
Yeah.
I think in particular, Dreamboat Annie is the one that really showcases what Nancy can do over Little Queen personally.
Yeah.
But let me just get it out of the way now. Nancy's amazing. Everyone in this band's pretty great. So yeah, don't want to give favoritism towards Anne, even though I think Anne once again is like the killer weapon of this band. Nancy's also like fucking great at what she does. So like, not trying to push her out of the microscope.
Well, I think the important thing to recognize Nancy is that she has a very unique guitar tone. Because you listen to like Zeppelin, for example, and Zeppelin guitar tone is never this chunky. But you listen to like Van Halen, and Van Halen has a lot of chunk to it, but it's not as like gnarly, you know? Van Halen's a little more like muddy. This almost feels like if you took like the guitar tone from like Mississippi Queen, right? And then you just made it louder. Like you just Mississippi Queen was a pit bull, and then you just didn't feed that pit bull for a couple of days. That's what it's just got this level of depth and weight to it that every time she plays a solo or even a note, like it's like it comes up on the first song on Dreamboat Annie, which we'll get there. But it's like, man, God bless them by not making it this like chorusy, you know, big, beautiful thing. Make it loud and then make it louder. Because it works so well with Anne. That is maybe what I think is the secret weapon, is the way that her voice combines with a very, very adult, energetic, enthusiastic, heavy guitar tone.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
It moves on to Treat Me Well, a sultry lament, right? Very much I was going to call it a ballad, but a ballad didn't feel right here. It's very much lament. It's very much that sultry lament, and it's got that harmonica there, which does a lot of work for that sultriness comes a lot in the harmonica. Very good. Again, that's kind of where it sort of hits for me. It's good, but it's not wowing me, right? And this kind of tracks through the whole second half of this record, where I'm like, man, this is all good stuff. Nobody's like faltering here. It's not like a matter of, oh, they just suddenly got bad. It's like, no, they're good through the whole record. But something about that first half, you know, obviously Barracuda helps a lot. Dream of the Archer helps a lot. But like the second half just doesn't quite do it as much for me. And I think Treat Me Well kind of falls into that same camp. I like that it's different. I like that it's sort of approaching it from a different angle with things like the harmonica. But I don't really see myself coming back to this song, you know? It's not a song a year from now I'll go like, oh man, I want to listen to Heart again. What am I going to pick? I don't see Treat Me Well coming up on that short list of songs I want to listen to.
See, this song, it felt like Led Zeppelin, but if you mixed it with Tony Bennett. Like, that's the only way I could really call it down the line, is you give it this sense of orchestral, I guess, like theatricality, right? You start adding strings, start adding in horns and things like that. But the harmonica brings it back down to the level that we know, which is still rock and roll. But once again, it just feels like there was a really good attempt at this, and it's called Led Zeppelin 4.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a shame, man, because if Led Zeppelin 4 hadn't come out, this would have been gangbusters.
One wonders if this would have been the Led Zeppelin 4 of that multiverse. The multiverse where Led Zeppelin never became a band, but Heart did. And they released Little Queen, right? Is Little Queen now like in the top 10 rock records of all time? Because it's filling that void that Led Zeppelin 4 would have left. Who knows, right?
Who knows?
Okay, the next, Say Hello. Have you heard this song before?
I fucking hate this song.
Okay, but here's the thing, though. Like, I don't know if I've heard this song before. I swear to God I have. It sounds like a car commercial song.
It does sound like a car commercial song.
It sounds like the commercial where it starts and it's got the and you got like the car rolling through the desert and just Anne comes in and like the dirt's rotting off the wheels. I've had to have heard this song before because I swear I'll put money down this was in a car commercial somewhere. Now, removed from that sort of comedic angle, I don't hate the song, right? You came out of the gate swinging by saying I hate this song. I don't hate it. I think it's kind of a fun little upbeat thing, but once again, it's not the kind of thing where this is going to be in my rotation. This is a song I'm going to come back to. If I listen to Little Queen several months from now for whatever reason, I'm not going to skip this song. I'm just gonna be like, oh yeah, it's that car commercial song, right? I remember this song, and I'll bob my head or snap my finger to it, and then it'll be over. It'll be done, and I'll move on with the next thing. It's fun, it's upbeat, but it's not anything amazing.
Yeah, I just getting through the last couple of songs was a real treat, right? And then you get to this, and it just feels like pure Ren Fair music. And
Mm-hmm.
it made me want to bang my head against the wall because it's like, guys, at least I like the rest of it. I hate this. This sucks.
You do make an interesting point that if this were just instrumental, I think it would fit in like a Ren Fair. They got the hidden speakers throughout the place because it's
Yeah.
Ren Fair, right? Because it's got that. I don't know if it is a mandolin, but it's got that sound.
It's definitely some kind of mandolin sitar thing. Like a lot of this record, though, really weird, has a mandolin.
Mm-hmm.
Like it seems like they bought a mandolin and wrote a lot of these songs with the mandolin in mind. Because even like with Dream of the Archer, it's like there's a heavy presence of mandolin. But Heart isn't like a bluegrass band. So why is there so much mandolin? And the only thing that I can imagine is that, Mike, like you were saying, somebody listened to Led Zeppelin 4 and was like, oh, I like all those songs. Let's just get this little freaking thing, this 12-string monstrosity. Just make a couple of those songs.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's cool. And then, but like, this is, in my opinion, this is the low point of the record. This is where if I had bought this record, I would have turned it off probably.
Wow.
Yeah, because I really dislike the song. But then you get to Cry to Me. What a sweet little song. What just like a cute little song. Taylor Swift could have written this song today, and I would have liked it.
Well, to me, it kind of feels like the intro to, again, it feels like an intro to the next song, which is Go On Cry, which, it's funny that one's called Cry to Me and the next song is called Go On Cry. For me, that's a clear indication this was like intro. And in fact, it literally leads into the next song. It's not like it's a hard cut. I don't have much to say about Cry to Me in the fact that I do feel it's just an intro to the next, other than, once again, Anne is just like killing this thing, right? As she has on pretty much all these songs. But yeah, Cry to Me, just an intro to what I think is the superior moment on Go On Cry.
Yeah. It's a cute song. If this song came on shuffle by itself, I'd like it. And then, dude, you get to Go On Cry. Brother. Oh, Mike, it's like they woke up and it's like Nancy said to herself, oh shit, this all sounds like Led Zeppelin 4.
Yeah.
We got to get the other bands in here. Because in my opinion, this is the single best attempt at Pink Floyd and King Crimson I've ever heard in my life.
It's so psychedelic.
It's awesome. It is so good. And it's like, is the influence on the sleeve, right? Are they wearing cheekily enough their heart on their sleeve? Maybe. Man, does it? It sends me to fucking hell, dude. I hear it. I listened to this song the first time and I was like, this is what I want guitar music to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's so theatrical. It's doing everything I love. It gets weird at some points. There's like weird things happening. And then you get to like the end and you're like, I'm happy that was the end of this record. Oh, that's how this record should have ended. Is like we're doing all the weird stuff before. We got mandolins, we're singing folklore songs. We have like a kick-ass blues riff here. And then you get to this and it's like, okay, now we're going to stretch our legs. And we're going to leave you with maybe in my opinion, this is the best song on the record.
So, well, let me get to that in a second. For my part, I like the song a lot. It really feels like an instrumental. There are vocals there. They are present, but they're so, at least in my opinion, minimal that it really feels like an instrumental track, which I think is cool to end the record because the instrumentals on this song are like going all out. I mean, the groove is amazing. The drum work in the second half, I unfortunately don't know the drummer's name of Heart. He kicks ass in the second half of this song. He's doing some crazy work. I like it a lot too. Now, you say it's the best song on the record. I'm not sure I agree. I mean, Barracuda is hard to beat. I do like this song a lot. It's probably in my top 3 on the record. But would you then therefore say it's Led Zeppelin 4 infused, in that When the Levee Breaks is also the last song on that record, and that's clearly the best song on Led Zeppelin 4? If this is the best song on Little Queen, are they once again pulling from the Led Zeppelin playbook?
That's entirely possible. Now,
it's a stretch, I'm sure, right? I don't think that's what it is, but I thought it was funny.
I agree, that is funny. Now, what would have been funnier if this was just a Heart rendition of When the Levee Breaks? If they just full sent it and said, "Seek," the last song is just this Led Zeppelin cover. I'd be like, come on, gals, guys, what are we doing here?
I would be interested to hear Heart cover When the Levee Breaks. Probably be good.
Didn't they do they did a cover of Stairway?
Maybe.
For like Robert Plant and Jimmy Page going into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, like separately. Mm-hmm. They did a cover, which is really, I mean, it's really good. And they had the Chicago Kids choir.
Nice.
So you ever get that video? It's really, really good. Yeah, it cuts to Robert Plant and he has like a single tear going, and then it cuts to Jimmy Page and he's just smirking, like he's like, yeah, we did that. That's okay.
Yep.
I'm gonna go soon, but man, we really we ran the gamut on that one.
Yeah, I don't like to wrap up Little Queen. I think it's a good record. Personally, let's remove the whole Led Zeppelin thing for a second. On its own, I think it's a good record. Do I think it's a great record? I think is the question. I'm not quite sure. I think it has a lot of great moments, and individually there are some great songs here. But as an entire package, I just think it's good. Right? It's probably hitting like 7 out of 10 for me, maybe 7.5. I can't quite go to 8, 9. 9 I think is just way too high, and then 10, no. So, encompassing itself, I think it's a good record, but man, can I not get over that Led Zeppelin thing. And it'd be interesting to talk to like people who are it sounds wrong to say this, but like people who have been invested in Heart for like years, right? My parents, Savannah's parents, maybe your parents, Cody, I don't know. But like people who like grew up with this music or were there when they were like releasing Little Queen, do they feel the same way about this record that we, who just a bunch of 20-year-olds, like millennials, do they feel the same way we do? I don't know. But once again, it's fascinating that you had the same take as I did, which is, man, is this thing just Led Zeppelin 4 in a lot of places?
Yeah. And honestly, if we're removing the Led Zeppelin factor, it's a very good rock and roll album. Because, you got to think, even if Led Zeppelin wasn't a direct influence, Led Zeppelin still existed, right? You had to deal with it. It's Led Zeppelin is Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, and LeBron James all wrapped up into one entity, and you just have to get around it every day. Okay, but that doesn't mean these songs are any lesser of quality. They make some interesting choices. There's a lot of fun. The last song is nice because I get to hear some Pink Floyd, which is great. You don't get a lot of Pink Floyd influence in music, I feel like, at least guitar based for like normal chords structure. Obviously, the solos, David Gilmour did all that amazing work, but like, I think this is a really good record. It personally, I would say it is a great rock and roll record. I don't know though if I'm putting it in comparison with the rest of the Heart catalog, if it is equally as great as Dreamboat Annie.
Yeah, see, a funny thing happened in the Heart career, which is they released this record way before. Well, maybe not way before, but they released a record before Little Queen. And in fact, it's their first record, right? That's the thing we have to keep in mind here. This is the record they come out with, out of the gate. You got this band, right? This band called Heart. What a generic name, right? Like, could you pick I'm playing the fool here. Could you pick a more generic name? Oh, there's 2 girls in this band. Like, I don't know, man. What's this band possibly going to do? Magic Man comes on. Bro? Well, here's the funny thing. We were originally going to do track by track, right? And this happened on the Anthrax episode, which was my 2 favorite Anthrax songs got matched up with each other. The same thing happened here. Right out of the gate, you get my 2 favorite Heart songs, which is Magic Man on Dreamboat and then Barracuda on Little Queen. Bro, Magic Man. What a song to start your career with. The opening statement. If it would have come down to a track by track, I would have given it to Magic Man. Magic Man does everything I want it to, right? It takes you on a journey. I forget how long the song is, but I think it pushes like 6 minutes, if I'm not mistaken.
It's like a little over 5. It's like
Because
5.5.
yeah, because of that extended midsection, which
Yep.
that midsection, dude, my God. But like just the second it starts with the like that Nancy guitar note, and just that groove knocks you in your core, dude. Like it is so like in the pit of your stomach groove. What's interesting though, and I can only imagine people who heard this song back in 70 whatever when it was released, but like you hear that groove and you're like, oh my God, that's like gnarly as hell. And then on top of it, you get these like beautiful vocals, right? Anne isn't matching the groove in that she's got like this really gruff, like voice, right? She's got this very like flowy, flowery, beautiful voice on top of it. And it's like, why is this working so well? And it does. Chorus, amazing. The drum, like the drum fills, they're so simple. Just like simple tom rolls, right? And yet they do so much throughout the song. Favorite Heart song by a mile.
This is the instance I was talking about earlier where the guitar tone is just such an important factor, as equal as the vocals. Because you listen to the song, and this song could have just been like almost like Santana-esque, right? But the way that this guitar sits, every single time you get that dun dun, dude, it's shaking the speaker. It's like moving your seat. And that's awesome because I bet when people bought this record, they didn't think either of these women was playing guitar. I bet they had to go see Heart to realize that this fucking bonkers guitar sound was coming from a woman, which disgusting to think.
Right.
It's a guitar. A guitar is a genderless instrument. But this is a song where it's like every time I hear it, you just get this like it like enthralls you. It's just dun dun. It's so good. The vocals are so good. The drums are so good. The vocal performance in particular, this is a masterclass. Because once again, I mean, she is hitting these phrases with such velocity. And it's like it's such a full belly, full chest, right? You were singing until you were sweating. Your neck vein is popping. The second chorus when she's like it's talking about the mom to the daughter. Oh, dude. There's conviction in every single one of those words. And then you have other good instrumentation to back it up, right? The showcase of Heart isn't that it's women. The showcase of Heart is that it's kick-ass rock and roll. Now, it's just women making the music. But that doesn't matter because it's rock and roll. You know? Just like it didn't matter when like Little Richard was making rock and roll. Or it didn't matter when Boy George was making rock and roll. Rock and roll is a genderless, sexless thing, and that's what's fucking kick-ass about this song, because it's like, once again, going back to, I forget what the song we were discussing earlier, it might have been Kick It Out. It's like, oh no, it was Little Queen. It was like, all right, you want it, now you got it. What are you going to do with it? Song 1.
Album 1, song 1. Yeah, it's like, this is crazy to think this is their first song.
This is the Van Halen 1 thing.
Yeah.
Song 1, album 1.
Crazy. And like I said, that midsection is where it's just like instruments trading off solos. And you get that like part where, I don't know how to describe it, but it's the vocal part where they just come in with like the ahs.
Oh.
Like it's so good. And it's such a small choice that like if you removed it, the song would still work, but the fact that they just add it just like adds this whole other layer to just like this perfection. Perfect. Love it. Absolutely love it. Now, the next track is the reason I said we shouldn't do track by track, to give you a little behind the secret audience. Dreamboat Annie Fantasy Child is track number 2. Now, if you don't know this record well, what you'd be surprised to find out is that 3 of these songs on this record are the same song. I'm sorry, I'll be the one to say it. You get Dreamboat Annie Fantasy Child as track number 2. You get Dreamboat Annie as track number 5. And then you get Dreamboat Annie Reprise as track number 10, the final track. So Cody, I think it's only warranted to just talk about all three of these songs at the same time because they're literally the same song. The only difference is like the instrumentation that backs it up.
Yeah.
It's literally the same lyrics. It's the same vocal performance, to be honest. Now, on its own, it's good, right? I like Dreamboat Annie, the song. My issue is it kind of feels like a covers issue with me, which it's well documented at this point. I'm not a fan of covers being on your studio albums. I'm also not a fan of you using the same song 3 times. Like, now I'll give them a little credit. It's their first record.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't have a lot of gas in the tank, right? You had Magic Man, and you have the next song too, which is like you're really emptying the tank here with these killer songs. So I give them some credence to be like, look, we only got 7 songs. Well, we got 8, but what if we just made this twice? And it's like, whatever, dude. It's your first record. Yeah. So from a whole album perspective, I'm not a fan of this choice, but just as the song in isolation, I think it's good. I think it's pretty and, nice, but it feels weird to me.
Well, if we're going to talk about Fantasy Child, then we have to talk about Crazy on You. Because it leads right into it.
Yes, very much. Once again, the intro to the next track is what Fantasy Child feels like.
Yeah. And I'm going to be honest with you. I love I love the first 2 Dreamboat Annies. I think they're fun. It's a really interesting choice. It's the same thing that Pink Floyd did on Animals. It's like you're gonna get sick of hearing this song, but everything else that comes around these songs are gonna be so batshit crazy good that you're just gonna deal with 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Now the last one, I was ready to like throw the headphones against the wall. I was like, don't make me listen to this song again.
Now, I think you make a apt comparison with Animals because Pigs on a Wing 1 is the opener, Pigs on a Wing 2 is the end. Now, my thing is with Animals, Pigs on a Wing's like a minute long, right? And then you get like 40 minutes of other stuff, and then you get another minute at the end. So like, okay, 2 minutes of your 42-minute record or whatever, right? The problem here is that Dreamboat Fantasy Child isn't even the first track. It's the second one. That's a weird choice. It'd be one thing if this was like the first track, the middle track, and then the last track. Like, okay, I see your sequencing here. That's not what this is. And so, I don't know. It's a very strange choice to me. I don't know why, but you are correct in that Fantasy Child very much feels like the intro to Crazy on You, which is funny because the actual intro to Crazy on You is like immaculate, which is Nancy just doing this acoustic like riffage, which is so like, not like the craziest thing I've ever heard, obviously, but it's so nice to have. Could the song work without it? Yes. Is it better for it? Also, yes. And on top of it, Crazy on You, the song, just itself. Like, this is, again, that moment of like, okay, Magic Man was like 10 out of 10. Fantasy Child, whatever. Intro, what do you got next? And then they just pull out another banger of a song. This is the other like big hit on this record. It's very obvious why. You just listen to the song, you're like, okay, this thing's amazing. And like the case with Barracuda on the other record, this is a song I know very well. I believe it was in Guitar Hero 2, if I'm not mistaken. So like that's when I got introduced. And then from there, you just hear it all over classic rock radio. Yeah, I think it's fantastic. And in particular, not to beat this dead horse, but Anne's vocals on this song are crazy. To put the pun on it, I think her performance is crazy, especially in the chorus where she's just like, I'm not even going to attempt it. But it seems like she jumps like 6 octaves to hit those screeching U notes, right? It's so good.
Yeah, she is at the back of the building yelling to get to that last U. I mean, what can you say about this song, right? In my opinion, this is what all guitar music should aspire to be. Exciting, moving, insane at certain points, because you get that section where it's like it's the little like gypsy jazz lick going into the last chorus where it's that's crazy that you just throw that in there. But then you also get competent musicians on your first record really selling every choice that's happening. Like the Oz with the shaker in the background going into the last chorus. And like Mike said, And Anne's vocal performance on this is maybe one of the greatest of all time, because this doesn't feel like this feels like kind of Janis Joplin if you boiled it down in a way, where it's like it's not as unpredictable, like it's not as rabid almost. It's like Ann Wilson knows exactly where she's going at any given time. And every time she goes for a really big vocal section, you can tell it's just easy. It's easy because she's pulling like her whole body weight into these words, which is awesome,
Mm-hmm.
dude. And then once again, going back to the guitar playing, a masterclass. First, this is your first record, and I mean, I bet some people were really upset when they heard this. I bet a lot of people were like, "You're telling me a woman can play guitar this good?"
Oh,
I bet that dinged some people's egos
if I
because I
remember,
mean, go ahead.
if I remember correctly, like in the media, now in the time the media was like radio, newspapers, TV channel, your 3 TV channels you got. But if I remember correctly, in the media they did get a little lambasted. I think there was even like rumors that Anne and Nancy were like a lesbian couple, which is so fucking absurd. You know, just like it's just stupid shit. Um,
Yeah,
but you enter into a man's game, quote unquote, and unfortunately, that that's kind of part and parcel. I don't think it should be, but
yeah.
especially back then, like, come on.
Well, and I'll even be honest with you. I would rather take Heart over some bands.
Oh yeah.
There are some bands that we listen to on a podcast even where I'm like on a day-to-day basis I'd much rather listen to this because it doesn't feel like there's like a shithead attitude. It just seems like people were excited
Hmm.
and they got a break and then they said, all right, well, we're taking the chance, man.
Yeah.
Eat it if you don't like it.
And the thing I appreciate too about this record in particular is that, you know, we're 3 tracks deep. The 3 tracks
Yeah.
so far have been wildly different from each other. Now, they sound similar in that it's the same band playing the song, sure. But like, you compare this to Little Queen, and it's like, this doesn't feel yet super Zeppelin influenced, right? It feels like its own unique thing. And I appreciate that, especially when it's their first record. Like,
Mhm.
I'm glad Little Queen was not their first record because I don't think they would have been as successful, believe it or not. Because people would have been like, it's just some upstart band trying to be Led Zeppelin with a female singer.
Yeah.
Dreamboat Annie's, it's like, I don't feel that way. But you get the track number 4, which is Soul of the Sea. Gorgeous song. Like,
Yeah.
beautiful. I call it beachy vibes, but not like Myrtle Beach beachy vibes where you've got like 5,000 people on the beach. This is like the beaches in Maine, like New England beach, where it's like, it's kind of cold. You're out there alone. There's like a lighthouse in the distance. There's like seagulls. It's like not crowded at all beach vibe. And it's so gorgeous. But you get to the second half of the song, which takes it up a notch, right? It's a little more upbeat. I was feeling that Zeppelin influence. I got to be honest. I was feeling a little Zeppelin there, but not in the way that I'm like, okay, this is clearly just aping Led Zeppelin. It's
Yeah.
like, it was probably, if I was back in the day and I heard this for the first time, I would have been like, oh, Led Zeppelin is a clear influential band to them. They really like Led Zeppelin. As opposed to Little Queen, where by track 4, I'm like, okay, did they just ape Led Zeppelin on this record? That's what I think Dreamboat Annie gets the edge for me in a lot of cases because it feels like they like Led Zeppelin, not that they're trying to be Led Zeppelin.
Yeah. Which, once again, going back to this point, I mean, because when did this record, you said this record came out, what, 70?
I know Little Queen came out in 70, again, I could be wrong, 77.
Okay.
This was probably like, if I had to guess, 73, 74.
Okay, so had the Beatles broken up at this point? Okay, then Led Zeppelin's the king of the game. I mean, like, it would be impossible to make guitar music and not sound like Led Zeppelin. You know? I just imagine it was in the air. Now, what I really like about this song, personally, it kind of has like a really big Elton John vibe. But if Elton John listened to like Jefferson Airplane, you know, like if Elton John's did like a small tab of acid one time, and I just love it's got that beach vibe, but it's almost got this like comical beach vibe, right? Where it's like we're really selling it here. Love the mandolin. I love that this song is fun and theatrical. And personally, it is a very, very nice break away from the last 3 songs, right?
Mhm.
The last, or however many songs. Because it's like, okay, cool. This isn't just guitar music. They have other skill sets, and it's nice that they are showcasing these other skill sets instead of like doubling down on being like, we're down and dirty rockers. It's like, no, that's cool. I mean, yeah, I like calypso music too. I'm
Yep.
here for it. Yeah. You know?
And not to mention it once again, I think Anne in particular is just really selling the nature of the song and really making it take that extra step. That the other members are elevating it a lot, and takes it to the stratosphere for me a lot of times. And I think she's also doing it on this song as well. Now, as we mentioned, Dreamboat Annie follows this up. I don't think we need to say anything more unless you want to, Cody, but Dreamboat Annie track 5 is very similar to Dreamboat Annie track 2. It's a little more folky this time, which I appreciate, but it largely feels like the same song to me.
See, I love the second Dreamboat Annie because it feels exactly what the song is called.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like someone's on a dreamboat. It feels like if my interpretation of Dreamboat, if I was asleep and I was being carried through my dreams on a boat. You listen to this song and that's what it feels like. It's really lush, right? It's like it's got this sense of like hokiness, but it's not hokey in a bad way. It's like we're just having fun, man. We're just enjoying this. It's cushy, it's comfortable, it moves. It has this sense of like you're wandering in and out of experiences. You know? I like that because now we're getting into this section of like, all right, we're trying things here. This is cool. Whereas the first Dreamboat Annie, it's like this nice little diddly, essentially. And this is like, okay, we're expanding on the idea, really making sense of it. And then we're going to go back to the rock.
Yeah. And
we're
then
going to pull it back in.
And then do they? Because you get White Lightning and Wine, which, man, what there's just something about a quarter note cowbell, Cody, that just gets me right in the feels.
Thank you.
It's so simple, and yet it does so much, right? And I kind of, this is a tirade. I don't know who thought to do that for the first time. Like, who would take a cowbell and be like, let's just try this, right? And then they just take a drumstick and just start hitting it. They're like, oh, wait a second. That's kind of cool. It's so simple and it adds so much, especially when the bluesy nature of this song is just locked in that 4/4 groove. It's great. It's fantastic. It's stuff you don't hear on Little Queen, right?
Yeah.
Little Queen, you get to track number 6 at this point, and you're like, man, it's starting to feel samey. Not here. They just throw out this fucking blues track out of nowhere. This like vibey blues number.
And it's funny because they really do pull it out of it's seemingly nowhere.
Yeah.
Because you get to the end of Dreamboat Annie and you're like, man, that was nice. I feel like I've just been on like a yacht. Like I feel like I just got out of like a Tempur-Pedic commercial. And out of nowhere, you just get this guitar. It's like, oh, okay, we're back into this, boys. I bet, thinking about the cowbell, I bet it was something that old blues drummers used to use as a metronome while someone was doing a solo.
Yeah.
Because I feel like you never hear a cowbell with a polyrhythm. Like you'll never hear Blake from BT Bam toss a cowbell on like 12/5 or whatever.
Well, it's funny. Going back to Colors 2, even though we kind of shit on that record. In Colors 2, there's the song Fix the Error where there's that extended drum solo and you get a quarter note cowbell that's keeping the beat. So maybe that is the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet it's just a way to keep on everything else, but keep the band knowing where exactly we are. I mean, but come on, let's talk about cowbell. Cowbell kicks ass. More songs needed, and more songs need to just be plain out rock and roll songs about cocaine and wine.
Yeah,
that's it. I hate that we lived in such a PC. This is a bit. I hate that we live in such a PC culture. Give me more songs about cocaine and wine that aren't rap songs.
Because when they kick ass, you know?
When they kick ass, you've never lived until you've had White Lightning and Pink Moscato in the same 30-second span of time. Right, Mike?
Well, I can't speak from experience, but I'm
putting Mike's professional career on blast right now.
Yeah, well.
This is a joke. For those listening at home, Mike does not condone the use of White Lightning. He might drink wine.
I try not to. Wine is not it.
I respect that. I don't condone the use of White Lightning or wine, so just ignore us. That was a joke.
Yes.
Please.
How about we move on, Cody? How does that sound?
Sorry.
Anywho,
Where's Percy with the
oh, she ran away.
toy?
She's
Yeah.
gone at this point. She's not coming back,
That dick,
thankfully.
that fucking dick.
Yeah. Regardless, Love Me Like Music, I'll Be Your Song. How do you feel?
Guys,
How do you
it's a
feel?
perfect song. Mike, how can you hate this song?
You think so?
It's so good. It's so good, but in the same way that people really, really love, like, what's his name? Gregory Alan Isakov. You know who that is?
Maybe.
He did the song that's the credit scene for Haunting of Hill House.
Oh, okay.
So it's like a lot of acoustic guitar with big cello in the background, very subtle drumming, like these really big, I call it Starry Night music, where if you were going to go on a road trip and Savannah was asleep and you looked up and you saw the stars, that's what it would sound like. This really subtle, moving kind of vibe. This is a perfect song in that stance of like, we are, you know what, this is just an innocent little adolescent song, and I love it because 3 songs ago, you know, we're kicking ass with guitar riffs, and it's nice to hear just like a gentle little reminder of their youthfulness. Yeah,
I appreciate that it's different. Like we've been saying, so much of Dreamboat Annie feels different. It feels like different genres, which I appreciate. It's a good ballad with good ballad vocals. Like the lyrics are very ballady and good. It's just good to me, though. It wasn't a song where I was like, man, this is amazing. And in particular, there's this section towards the second half, and I think it's somewhere deep in the second half, where all the music cuts out and they're doing like claps on 2 and 4.
yeah,
bro, that's corny as hell, dude. Like,
come on.
No, that ain't it. Like,
Mike,
just how it's. I can just picture, like, I'm going to try and paint a visual image since we're on audio here, but like, you know, you're at the concert and they're like, "Come on, everybody, clap!" And they're doing like the overhead clap. They're not even doing like the. It sounds like something at like a youth pastor camp, right? It's so cringy and corny to me that I hate that moment. I'm sorry, I hate it. Everything else is good, but that moment in particular, I hate.
I think maybe you need to give them a little bit of grace, seeing as this is their first record. Just a slight bit of like, you're allowed to make a couple really ridiculous decisions.
And thankfully, it's only like 3 seconds. It's not like it goes on forever. So like, sure, they do it and they move on. Fine. I can't get over it though. I think it's so stupid.
Yeah, if I ever have children, I will introduce them to this song. This is the kind of song that like you would hang out with your kid in the living room and dance to. And
the 2-year-old would clap in the moments.
Yeah. They wouldn't be able to make a noise. It'd be like,
yeah, they would know they would know the clap part.
They would know the clap part.
Yeah.
What? I like the slide guitar too. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like I said, I think everything about the song is good, except that one part. You know, everything else I like. So overall, it's a good song.
Yeah.
Remember how we said that, you know, they just mix things up and just go down different avenues for every song? You get to Sing Child. It's like a totally different band. Like, who are these guys? This is like Heart 2.0 or something. Because you get what I can only describe as like, it is that sort of like hippie music. Okay, so now your cat enters the picture, Cody. It's Petapalooza on this episode.
This is the wildest episode of Album Fight Club we've ever had.
Yeah, my dog with the chew toy, your cat with the moaning.
God, Princess, you okay, baby? Yeah, she's okay.
Okay. Trying to get the train back on the rails here. How do you feel about Sing Child?
Yeah, dude, it's so good. It's so good. This riff kicks ass. And then I like how the bass starts off real high. It made me giggle because every other band would do just like, they're following the riff. We're following the riff until we get to a big moment. It's like almost like a proto Guns N' Roses moment, where it's like, you know, Duff McKagan would always do some kind of cool melodic thing. He's got this bass player. He is like up there. I like it. And then when it kicks in, dude, awesome. Feels uber serious for some reason. Like it feels really, really serious, like a witchy kind of vibey song. But instead of it being like a Fleetwood Mac thing, you just have like one of the coolest guitar riffs in the world.
The
And I like
the guitar is gnarly as hell.
it's insane.
I don't know if I might have, but like it feels very 60s, even though this is a 70s record. It almost feels like a hippie drum circle or something, and like 15 hippies are singing "Sing Child Sing."
Yeah.
And then you get that flute coming out of nowhere.
Dude.
I love a good flute solo in rock music. Ian Anderson led the charge with Jethro Tull, and then everyone else picked it up after him, right? It's you throw a flute in there and you kick ass on it. By the way, Anne is the one that plays the flute. So not only is she a great singer, she also can throw a flute out of nowhere and rock that too. So,
hey, you know what? This is what a lot of rock and roll should have sounded like.
Yeah.
I like that it's got some weird like technical stuff happening, like the way that they're singing is in a different diatonic note choice. Because they're doing like the note and then they're doing like just a quarter step up, which is cool. It's not like the generic choice like it's like that's interesting to me. And then everything else about this song is awesome, man. You know, what Dreamboat Annie does really good as a record is I feel like it just continues to introduce the sections of Heart that work really well without allowing all of it to get bloated by like legacy, maybe. You know, it's like we don't know what to do, so we're just going to do what we know what to do instead of what is the correct thing to do on a first record.
Or at least put a spin on it that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because you get to How Deep It Goes, the next track, and where so much of Little Queen was Zeppelin influenced, this song to me is like early 70s prog, like Genesis, early Genesis, right? Yes, some King Crimson in there. This is a very prog rocky song to me, at least. Because the piano usage in particular on this song, one, it's great. It's great. The piano usage across the board on the song is great. But so much of it in tandem with the instrumentation feels like something Yes would do, something Genesis would do. Really interesting that this early in the game, they're so able to take all these different things and meld them well together.
Yeah, this feels like Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
This song feels like the band Chicago, which I really love because I have a deep admiration for the band Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, no, that's really all I have to say is it's like, if on Little Queen, like Go On and Cry that's a good attempt at Pink Floyd and King Crimson. Mm-hmm. To me, this feels like somebody sat down with like the first Chicago record and was like, I really like all of the stuff that's happening here. Yeah. I want to do everything that's happening on this record. And, but it's nice that they put their heart spin on it. It doesn't feel like it's worship. It just feels like if someone was a fan of music, made music. That's all it really seems. Like, I like this thing, so I'm going to do this thing, you know?
And I think there's a very reasonable excuse to say this should have been the last song. Or at least, because we've already kind of talked about Dreamboat Annie Reprise, which is the actual last song in the record.
Yeah.
I think Dreamboat Annie Reprise should have been a Pigs on a Wing Part 2, where it's like a minute, maybe 30 seconds, right? It's short. But with Dreamboat Annie Reprise, you get this whole symphonic ending, which brings in like strings and all this other stuff. And I don't know, like you've already done this twice with Fantasy Child and the song Dreamboat Annie. It's like, yeah, you're adding new stuff, but it's not different enough. The lyrics are verbatim on every single one of these songs. Anne's performance on all three of them sound exactly the same. She's not doing anything new or interesting, in my opinion, right? And that's partially because the lyrics are all the same. So it kind of ends on a dour note for me, just because I don't see why they did it 3 times. I don't know if you want to add anything. I know you already went off a little bit about it.
My exact note on my Google Doc. I do a Google Doc for every episode of Album Fight Club, except for the Dark Side versus Wish You Were Here. Jesus Christ, I cannot listen to this song again. That's it.
Yeah, it overstays its welcome, unfortunately.
What I think they should have done is just cut it in half, tacked it onto How Deep It Goes. Just figure a way to put it in the end. Bing bang boom, you're good. Make How Deep It Goes a 7-minute odyssey, and then just end it there. Because I feel like to make it an entirely separate track, it's like now I have to acknowledge it. I can't just get it in like, oh well, this is a sweet way to end the record, right? Now I
Yeah.
gotta fucking look at it.
I think of Colors, which is a weird comparison to make. We talked about Colors on a previous episode, but you think
Yeah.
about Colors and how it starts with piano and ends with piano, and the piano riffage, if you call it that they're doing, is very similar. So you hear it in your head. Oh, they're doing the same thing they began the album with. This is like literally throwing it in your face and saying, "Look, we're doing the same thing." That's not clever. That's not interesting, right? It's more interesting when you, like you said, you just subtly add something that is the same thing or sounds very similar to the same thing. So I'm with you. I think either How Deep It Goes should have had an outro that was Dreamboat Annie, or the Dreamboat Annie reprise track 10 should have been like 30 seconds. And all is Nancy just doing a little guitar thing and Anne doing one verse from Dreamboat Annie.
Yeah.
That's it. And then you end it.
Yeah. They just should have done the time move, right? Where it's like you do time, and then at the end of time you get the breathe reprise.
Mm-hmm.
Make it a minute maybe.
Yep.
And like I get it too. It's awesome. It's your first record. Someone probably talked them into it. Someone was probably like, you should do this song 3 times. But with the power of hindsight, seeing as this record's probably 45 years old.
Older, probably.
We now know that 19 or 22-year-old Hart should have not done that.
Yep.
So bad Hart.
With that being said, though, what a killer way to open your career is this record. Yeah. Yes, the whole Dreamboat Annie 3-song thing, it's a little lame, and it didn't really age well, in my opinion, and I think Cody's opinion as well. However, like literally every other song here is pretty fantastic. And in the case of songs like Magic Man and Crazy on You, it's like career-defining work on your first record. There are some bands that have done that. You know, we talk about Van Halen 1 and how amazing that thing is, that's their first record. We've been talking about Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin had good songs on their first Now, to be fair, Led Zeppelin 1 is my favorite Led Zeppelin record, but that's not because the songs on it are their best work. For me, I just really like the sound and approach of Led Zeppelin 1. Half of Led Zeppelin 1 is like covers, which is like my cardinal sin, and yet I love the sound of it. But that's beside the point. To think that this is their first record and that this is the stuff they came out with on their first record is kind of mind-boggling. And it sort of cemented them as like, okay, this band has something to say. They've got something to prove. These chicks can kill it along with the dudes in the band. Like, let's give these guys a shot because they clearly prove they've got something that's worthwhile.
Yeah, I agree. And to piggyback off of what Mike has said, if you're listening to this and you are someone who feels like music is a gendered experience, you're the fucking idiot. You are allowed to enjoy whatever music you want as long as it's not harming other people.
Perhaps that is the best way to end this conversation, which is with hindsight now, we know Heart's this huge, big rock band that have, you know, they've got the catalog, they're on classic rock, and that's amazing. I think we are better off because of bands like Heart, because of bands giving opportunities to be like, look, yeah, the Beatles are the greatest rock band ever. Led Zeppelin is leading the charts. Pink Floyd's got this record that's sitting at number 1 for however many months and years and whatever, right? They're all dudes, and we get that, right? We understand that like the biggest rock bands of all time had all dudes in them. But that's not to say that that's all it can be, right? There can be bands like Heart. There can be women like Joan Jett and Pat Benatar and the Runaways and all these other women that come into the picture and make great music. So I'm glad Heart was a band. I'm glad women had their place. That sounds awful. I'm glad women took the chance to make music when so often men were like, you won't make it. You won't make any money. You'll be laughed out of the room. No one's going to take you seriously. And Heart said, I don't care.
Yeah.
We're going to do this. And they did. And they made great music.
Well, even down the pipeline, one of the biggest bands in alternative metal right now is not Sleep Token.
Spirit Box.
Spirit Box.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's Courtney LaPlante, who was also in a band called I Wrestled a Bear once, who grinded it out for 12 years and then formed Spirit Box, right? which is massive. They only play big festivals. They only play big rooms. Let that be as much of an inspiration, not only for like, young women, but for anybody who feels like a little bit of a misfit and is like, hey, I want to pick up a guitar. You can do anything. You can choose to do anything. It is the active choice to persevere through the frustration of people telling you you can't.
Absolutely.
And I bet that's, in my opinion, what makes these two Heart records so good, because they got a chance, they ran with it, and they said, we're doing it whether you like it or not.
And like I said, I think we're better for it.
We are better for it.
Any final notes, Cody?
None. Actually, yeah, one. Once again, if you please just listen to any kind of music you like. You don't have to be an idiot. It's the year of our Lord 2024. Men, women, theys, thems are all capable of making fantastic music, and you are doing yourself a disservice if you allow something as ridiculous as a gender specification deter you from listening to an artist.
Well said, well said. I concur. I agree. And I thank you, Cody, for being here with me. I thank you, audience, for listening. And we hope to see you on the next one. Until then, take care.
Be well.